Hello and welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Aaron Porras, and coming up in today's newscast, Israeli Intelligence Chief Ronen Bar heads to Egypt in hopes of calming tensions with Cairo. Meanwhile, a look at Israel's sale of the Iron Dome missile defense systems to Cyprus. And finally, anarchy in central Israel this morning as a bull looks to file a complaint with his local banking representative. Tensions rising between Israel and Egypt now as Israeli security operations against the Palestinian Islamic Jihad terror group continuing. So in a bid to cool things down, Israeli officials making a surprise trip to Cairo. Israeli Shin Bet director Ronen Bar flying to Egypt on Sunday for meetings with his Egyptian counterpart. This in efforts to calm Egyptian officials who are growing increasingly frustrated with Jerusalem. Egypt, long the acting mediator between Israel and Palestinian militants in Gaza, brokered the ceasefire between Israel and Palestinian Islamic Jihad in early August, and this bringing an end to Israel's Operation Breaking Dawn. But Egypt angry over Israel's perceived failure to hold up its end of the ceasefire agreement. According to Egypt's apparent understanding of the ceasefire, Israel agreeing to two things. First, to release Islamic Jihad terrorist prisoners, including the group's West Bank leader Bassem al-Sadi, whose arrest precipitated the fighting in Gaza. And second, to restrain IDF activities in Judea and Samaria. But IDF raids in Judea and Samaria continuing regularly, and Bassem al-Sadi's remand has been repeatedly extended by military courts, with charges expected soon. So what can we expect from meetings between Israeli and Egyptian intelligence officials in Cairo? With the analysis is journalist and senior research fellow at the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, Yoni Ben Menachem. Yoni, thank you so much for joining. Now, how could there be confusion over the terms of a ceasefire? Is it more likely that someone misrepresented, either intentionally or not, their positions, or someone maybe being dishonest? And if it's the latter, which party? Is it Israel, Islamic Jihad, or Egypt?
I think it's a matter of misunderstanding because the Egyptians were convinced or they anticipated that after a ceasefire will be reached in Gaza Strip, Israel will slow down or stop the arrests in the West Bank of the Islamic Jihad terrorists in order to calm things down. But of course, Israel cannot do that, and I think the Egyptians should not expect such a thing because these terrorists in the West Bank of the Islamic Jihad are ticking bombs. They are on the way to carry out terror attacks, and Israel cannot stop the arrests of these people.
All right, so regardless of the reason then, what can Israel do to smooth things over with Cairo, short of releasing Islamic Jihad members and compromising security operations?
What Israel can do is to explain its position to the Egyptians and to coordinate the expectations of the Egyptians to the reality. It cannot do more than that. Israel cannot give concessions when it comes to its own security. So I think that the head of the Shabak of the Shin Bet, Ronen Bar, who traveled to Cairo and met with Abbas Kamel, the head of the Egyptian intelligence, I think he explained to him the real meaning of stopping the arrest of the Islamic Jihad terrorists in the West Bank, and that Israel cannot do that. And Abbas Kamel is a very experienced person, and he knows exactly what the radical Islam means, and they know exactly, the Egyptian intelligence knows exactly who is the Islamic Jihad, and I'm sure that they will understand the Israeli position. Eventually, both countries, Israel and Egypt, they have their own security interests which are they're a lot more important than the issue of the Islamic Jihad.
All right, so if things don't smooth over, or at least not right away, might Israel-Egypt ties be undermined for the time being? Or how much worse might the situation actually get? Will the ceasefire with Islamic Jihad fall through? Or might Egypt refuse to broker ceasefires in the future?
No. These things cannot happen because the interest of Egypt, the security interest of Egypt is that the Gaza Strip will be calm and be stable. Because if there is no ceasefire in Gaza and there is escalation, this immediately affects the north of Sinai and then Egypt itself. And this a war in Gaza can create a lot of chaos in Egypt itself. So the main interest is to keep the calm in Gaza, and to keep the calm in Gaza, they need Israel. So they cannot disconnect themselves from the situation and be mad at Israel. This is a temporary tension that I'm sure is already diffused.
I mean, again, though, there were several Egyptian officials who were supposed to come to Jerusalem, and they ended up canceling their trip over this issue. So what about other regional cooperations? You mentioned Israel and Egypt's partnerships in the Sinai, for example, natural gas sharing, of course, and there are other regional security coordinations as well.
As you mentioned, the head of the Egyptian intelligence, Abbas Kamel, was himself supposed to come to visit Israel, and he boycotted the visit because he was mad at Israel because of what happened. But eventually, there's still a sticking point, which is connected directly to the ceasefire, and was even the cause of the last round of fighting in Gaza, which is the arrest of two Islamic Jihad activists, Bassam Saadi and Khalil al-Awawda, who is on hunger strike. Basically, their problem has not been solved, and they are not going to be released. Because one of them is going to be indicted during this week, Bassam Saadi, and the other guy, Khalil Awawda, the Supreme Court rejected his appeal to be released. So essentially, we're in square one, and this is why the Egyptians have to come here to try to find a solution to what is happening, so they cannot boycott Israel.
And again, and you suspect that this will smooth over soon, or how long will all this take?
No, it's a matter of days. I'm sure that the head of the Shabak, Ronen Bar, he settled the matter with the head of the with the head of the Egyptian intelligence, Abbas Kamel.
All right, Yoni Ben Menachem, thank you again.
You're welcome.
Heading north now, the IDF saying it's on high alert following the latest threats from Iranian proxy terror group in Lebanon, Hezbollah. ILTV's Kayla Eberlin reporting.
Israel and Lebanon reportedly closer than ever to a solid agreement on their maritime border, as well as on drilling rights to the gas fields in the area. But yet again, the Hezbollah terror group in Lebanon, a proxy for Iran, threatening to try sabotage the US-brokered talks. During a televised address last Friday, the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah responding to a number of Iran-related incidents, including the JCPOA nuclear talks in Vienna, and Nasrallah essentially saying that Hezbollah will act as needed, regardless of Iran's choices.
سواء وقع الاتفاق النووي أو لم يوقع إذا قدم للدولة اللبنانية ما تطالب به نحن رايحين على الهدوء وسواء وقع الاتفاق النووي أو لم يوقع إذا لم يعطى للدولة اللبنانية ما تطالب به نحن رايحين على تصعيد.
Israel, meantime, suspecting that Nasrallah's threats intended simply to back Lebanon in the maritime negotiations. Also, these comments position Hezbollah to take credit should Israel actually make concessions in the talks. But still, the IDF is on high alert, with Hezbollah having already acted on its threats in the past, including with at least 3 drones that flew towards Israeli gas rigs back in July.
In other news, Mediterranean neighbor Cyprus now set to purchase the famous Iron Dome missile defense systems from Israel. With more is military strategist and member of the political science department at Bar-Ilan University, Commander Dr. Eyal Pinko. Commander, thank you for joining. Now, this sale makes Cyprus the 5th country to purchase Iron Dome after the United States, India, Azerbaijan, and Romania. Why Cyprus?
First, as the first issue of that, is Cyprus is a very close friend and ally of Israel.